The Enlightenment was a philosophical and political movement starting in the 17th century, spanning more than 200 years. Johannes Kepler, Galileo Galilei, Isaac Newton, Immanuel Kant, Adam Smith, René Descartes, Voltaire. Names we've all heard before, all influential Enlightenment thinkers, championing ideals like rationalism, the scientific method, individual liberty, rule of law, the separation of church and state, and freedom of religion, among many others. They rejected the regressive and the primitive. Superstition, dictatorships, science denial, religious zealotry. The Enlightenment was so influential that it led to the formation of an entire country based on its ideals, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Compared to the monarchies controlling much of Europe at the time, their rulers insisting they were chosen by God to lead the unwashed masses, this new upstart country was an extremely ambitious project well ahead of its time. Such was the power of Enlightenment ideals. The rest of the developed world would later follow suit in adopting its principles, resulting in the so-called liberal, later neoliberal world order and the rules-based international order. Today, however, both are collapsing in front of our eyes as enemies of Enlightenment principles are elected into office across the developed world. Giorgia Meloni, Viktor Orban, Robert Fico, Geert Wilders, Elon Musk, Marine Le Pen, Herbert Kickl, Andrej Babiš. The list goes on. All elected leaders of Western democracies, future or current, all of whom fundamentally reject Enlightenment principles. Our modern political system, built upon those principles, is breaking down, being increasingly rejected by people, or so it seems. In large part due to our economic system becoming increasingly distorted, with more and more wealth concentrating at the top as the average person gets increasingly poorer. This is a far cry from the Enlightenment's lofty promises of equality, democracy, freedom, and more. We must therefore ask the question: what went wrong? The short answer is that the Enlightenment was left unfinished. Its last crucial component was never put in place, leaving a fatal flaw at the core of our modern world. Think of the Enlightenment as a building, rising from the swamp of the old world of dictatorship, superstition, and oppression. It is well built and robust, except for the fact that it doesn't have a roof. Its interior is exposed to the elements, its structure being eroded by rain, snow, and wind. Its columns are starting to lean, walls are beginning to crumble. It's not long before the whole structure collapses and is swallowed by the swamp, ending our decades, even centuries-long experiment in freedom and democracy. And our political leaders are either busy pretending the building is whole or trying to devise programs to distribute umbrellas to people inside. Missing roof? What do you mean? It's normal for rain to fall indoors. Leftists would want you to believe that it's abnormal to be exposed to the elements indoors. Imagine if the American pioneers who braved the wilds in wooden shacks had this weak attitude. America as such wouldn't exist. Roofs, HVACs, and thermal insulation are woke. Having no roof over your home is just like having personal data exposed online. With that, I would like to briefly welcome Aura as the sponsor of today's video. Imagine an organization you've trusted before announcing that their database has been breached. What do you do in that situation? Like when 2.9 billion records leaked during the National Public Data Breach. Full names, dates of births, addresses, social security numbers, suddenly all public. This is where Aura comes in, helping you remove your personal data from data broker and people search websites. Aura will also monitor whether your data surfaces anywhere and alerts you if identity theft is suspected, if someone is trying to open a credit card or take out a loan in your name, or worse. Up to 5 adults registered on your account get covered by identity theft insurance with a limit of $1 million each. Besides these benefits, Aura also comes with a VPN service, antivirus, and password manager, and offers 24/7 US-based support, all in one app at an affordable price. Do not leave yourself or family members vulnerable to data breaches. Go to aura.com/adamsomething to get a 14-day free trial and see if any of your data has been exposed. Thank you for checking out Aura. So in our current political economic system, the proverbial roof is missing, while politicians pretend that it's either not the case or insist that it's normal for rain to fall indoors. And the United States is the best example we currently have to illustrate this problem. Following the election of President Musk and Vice President Trump, it became clear that an era had ended. Kamala Harris, a champion of the status quo, had suffered a humiliating defeat against Elon Musk, who ran on right-wing, populist slogans. The Harris campaign struggled to come up with a popular, appealing message. In the final hours of the campaign, they settled on the anemic, uninspired freedom slogan up against the Musk campaign, promising to make America great again, deport millions of people, bring down prices, drain the swamp, and more. Now, why was the latter messaging more effective in the race? Because more and more people are increasingly disillusioned with the status quo. The everyday person's economic situation is either not getting better or is actively getting worse. Home ownership, a standard for past generations, is an unattainable dream for many of today's young people. US higher education is getting more expensive, healthcare is getting more expensive, grocery prices are increasing, rents are increasing. The only thing not increasing, or at least not nearly enough, is the average person's salary. And the issues don't stop on the economic front either. In the entertainment industry, corporate-controlled streaming websites churn out metric tons of visual slop made by exploited, overworked animators and visual artists. Formerly beloved game studios, known for their popular, innovative, trend-setting titles, are forced to make uninspired, by-the-numbers, at best mediocre games filled with predatory monetization schemes such as legalized gambling aimed at children. Artists of all sorts are getting fired and replaced by generative AI. Even the news articles we read often do not come from real journalists but ChatGPT. And all this is happening due to a single reason: corporate profit-seeking. The streaming sites, movie studios, game studios, news organizations, universities, hospitals, the food brands you buy, your utility companies, and more are all increasingly absorbed by large corporations that do not care about what their subsidiaries actually do. All they care about is the line going up. If that means scrapping a nearly finished movie for a tax write-off, or replacing writers and artists with AI, increasing grocery prices for no good reason, denying people healthcare, or introducing children to gambling, so be it. This consistent decay of both the economy and culture, not to mention people's financial situation, is not due to some nefarious international cabal, as some conspiracy theorists would want you to believe. The reality is far more banal and, I would argue, much more terrifying. The phenomenon we are experiencing is the corporatization and financialization of everything. It's corporations taking over more and more aspects of our lives, then looking for ways to make as much money on them as possible, to our detriment. And right now, America is the epicenter of this ongoing decay. Americans pay more for healthcare than any other developed nation on earth, yet have worse health outcomes. Why? Because the private insurance industry wants to make money. American higher education is getting more and more expensive because the private college and university industry wants to make money. Entertainment is disappearing into a pit of soullessness, mediocrity, and predatory monetization schemes because the corporations owning the studios want to make money. Journalists get fired and in turn get replaced by AI because the corporation owning their news site wants to make more money. And this ongoing decay of soulless money-making machines conquering more and more aspects of our lives is due to the aforementioned issue of the Enlightenment remaining unfinished, of its last greatest promise remaining unfulfilled, of freedom from monarchs and dictators in the economy. This is an illustration of a feudal hierarchy, a system the Enlightenment sought to dismantle and succeeded. The king sits on top, wielding the most power and influence. Below him a class of nobles, below them a class of knights, and at the very bottom, the serfs. The king has certain wants, such as money and military forces, and the nobility is tasked with delivering those in exchange for their positions. How they do so is mostly up to them. Outside of rare cases, the king doesn't really care how the country is actually run. It must be stable, the money should flow, and the military must be strong. Beyond these, he does not really care. Meanwhile, the serfs, though they make up the majority, have no control over how the kingdom is run. Now compare the hierarchy of a feudal monarchy to the hierarchy of a corporation today. The owner or group of owners sit on top. Below them a class of higher managers, your CEOs, COOs, CFOs. Below them a class of local managers, your team leaders, office managers, HR departments, and at the very bottom, the average employees. The owner has certain wants, mostly good quarterly results, and upper management is tasked with delivering them in exchange for their positions. How they do so is largely up to them. Outside of rare cases, the owner doesn't really care how the corporation is actually run. It must be stable, the quarterly reports should be in the green, and the company should grow. Beyond these, the owner does not really care. Meanwhile, the employees, though they make up the majority, have no control over how the corporation is run. The fact that these corporate structures are legal enables single individuals to amass enormous amounts of wealth, often through a very simple dynamic. Let's say your upstart business is successful and you make a good amount of money. This money can be used as leverage to gain political influence. Political influence can be used as leverage for more lax regulations, insider information and more, helping you get better deals, thus more money. More money nets more political influence, which is again leveraged for even more money, and so on. Now the chances of becoming a multi-billionaire with this cycle are extremely low. However, even if the chances are 1 in a billion, that's already 8 multi-billionaires in the world. We have far more than that, and the richest among them is President Elon Musk. At the time of making this video, Musk's net worth is about $500 billion. In contrast, Vice President Trump's net worth is only about $6 billion. This is a unique situation in the Western, democratic world, where Enlightenment institutions of equality and democracy clash directly with the old, regressive institutions of oligarchy and authoritarianism. Basically, our economy works as a regressive, authoritarian fifth column next to our enlightened, democratic systems. I've been calling Musk president throughout this video, but he wasn't actually elected. He isn't even a US citizen. That doesn't change the fact that right now, he holds political power comparable to a US president by virtue of being a king of an economic empire which has gotten so big that it is outgrowing the democratic system and is now able to subvert it from within. As more and more aspects of our lives come under corporate control, there will come a point where it won't matter that we live in a supposed democracy. Why would it? If corporations control your food, housing, water, electricity, your workplace, your entertainment, your transportation and communication, what can your elected representatives really do? Also, what if the owner of a corporation, a king, decides to buy your elected representative or use their massive wealth to buy the election by investing billions into propaganda and essentially financing the side they want to see win? Elon Musk has recently published a thinly veiled campaign piece in Germany's largest paper, Bild, where he advocated for Alternative for Germany, saying that the far-right party is Germany's last hope. Employees of Bild opposed the publishing of the article. The opinion section's chief editor resigned even, and the new chief editor immediately distanced themselves from Musk's article. And yet, the article is still up on the website, because Bild is owned by Axel Springer, whose CEO and future owner, billionaire Matthias Döpfner, sided with the Alternative for Germany party due to the party's plans for business deregulation. Döpfner, following Musk's example, is attempting to buy an election for his own financial benefits, being a large business owner just like Musk. Döpfner has certain wants, mostly good quarterly results. He doesn't really care if Bild becomes a far-right propaganda outlet. The quarterly reports should be in the green and the company should grow. That's all that matters to him. Though they make up the majority, employees have no control over how Axel Springer is run and increasingly over how their country is run. After all, democracy becomes meaningless if the king holds all the power anyway. The anti-Enlightenment politicians I mentioned in the beginning, Musk, Orban, Fico and the rest, for them, democratic institutions are mere tools or obstacles in becoming all-powerful oligarchs. Kings, the supreme owners of their corporate empires, which constantly expand their rule across their countries until they get so big that they won't have to care about those pesky checks and balances or rule of law. This is already the case in Hungary, where Viktor Orban's family and friends, the country's new billionaire class, control more and more of the economy. They have become so rich and powerful that the rule of law, whatever is left of it in Hungary, no longer applies to them. They rule you. They control ever more aspects of your life, yet you cannot vote them out, because they are not subject to democratic standards. Their system, the corporate economy, is not a democratic institution. This is the direction the US is headed right now. With the election of Musk and Trump, this process has now become increasingly obvious. When a relic of old, the autocratic business hierarchy outgrows the Enlightenment accomplishments in the form of the democratic system. When the proverbial swamp finally swallows the crumbling building, bringing us all back to an era of unabated propaganda, dictatorships, science denial, religious zealotry, and, specific to our time, trillionaires. Elon Musk is halfway there, in fact. If you would like to know what could replace traditional autocratic corporate hierarchies, I have a video about just that, democracy in the economy. You'll find the link in the description. We should start deprivatizing public services and begin work on democratizing the economy. The alternative I see to that is, well, more and more Luigis. And I'm not keen on finding out where that path would take us all. In the meantime, thank you for watching. If you want to support me in making content, please consider becoming a patron or a channel member here on YouTube. And I'll be seeing you next time.